So on this particular path here I used to walk to my friend from my childhood home. And as you might have caught already, we loved computer games. Even at that age. I would claim that this was the golden age of home computers, as they were called. The earliest affordable computers that you could buy. And sometimes they were sold as toys. The whole purpose was to play games. But some were actually sold as, you can keep your cookbooks on the computer. You can do accounting here. You can write letters on the computer. Even though there was no internet and even though very few people had printers. And the companies who sold them tried to convince people like, yeah, this is a useful device. But truth to be told, I think gaming was the largest application at the time. You might recall the Commodore 64. You might remember the Spectra video. And the games would come both on cartridges, which were quite expensive at that time, but also on cassettes. And cassettes were easily copied. You had a double-decker, as we call it in Sweden. Like you could have two cassettes in one device so that you could copy it and play back it from one and record it on the other deck. So we kids would take our games, go to our friends and copy the games. And of course it took some time. Loading a game from cassette could take from a couple of minutes up to maybe 5-6 minutes at worst, or even more. But it was like you weren't in a rush during that time. And I think it was compared to with today, when you have Steam with hundreds of thousands of games, if not millions of games, and you tend to get overwhelmed and you don't know which games to choose, which games to download and buy. But at this time you got a new game and you played it until you finished it. Because games weren't that accessible at that time. The way you purchased games was actually you would call a company, a physical store, or send a mail to them and order a game, and then you paid. I think you paid when you received it at the postal office. So some of the earliest games I remember were Manic Miner on the MSX. I remember Jet Set Willy. I remember Monkey Academy, Circus Charlie. What more? There was a game called Nightmare 1 and 2, I think was the name. But of course it didn't take long before the technology advanced. And with the Commodore 64 you had like so many games made. And you might wonder, why do I speak so much about old games? Well, simply put, because that was a big part of my childhood, playing computer games. No wonder I work as a game developer today. I mean, it was the new big thing. Already at that time it was kind of a divide between people who had computers and who had gaming consoles. And the earliest gaming console I remember playing was the Atari 2600. All games came on cartridges, and you used special controllers to play the games. You had all the classics like Space Invaders, Missile Command, Pac-Man. There were car games. I think one was called Dodgem, not sure. Asteroids. All the big IPs from Atari. But then, as you might know, there was the death of video games, because they weren't quite good enough at that time. It was kind of a gimmick and people got tired of them. The arcade games were so much better. But then in 1980, what was it? Was it 85 or 86? Enter the Nintendo Entertainment System, the 8-bit NES. It was a complete game changer. All of a sudden, you could play games that were on par almost with the arcade games. Sometimes even better. I will not go down that rabbit hole, because I suppose you already know lots about it. And also that I didn't have one myself. So we are here. Now we could make a steep ascent here, or we could continue this way. Steep ascent. Actually, it's a nice evening and I have plenty of time. Let's do it. Let's climb the mountain.